start with the introductions and we'll go on from there.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I will do a little bit of muting to start things off. We will have people joining us. We've got Selena just coming in now. So yeah, good afternoon. Welcome to another call. And this is living in an open prison. And my gosh, how some people are starting to suffer from the thought of being in a prison, even if they can't see the walls and the bars physically. I think mentally, walls and bars are being put up for people everywhere now, and certainly from seeing the news clips earlier today, from the reaction of people yesterday, trying to get out into the open spaces and make the most of the open spaces possibly while we can. I think interesting, the whole premise of the open prison. You know, we cannot see the walls. There aren't physical walls, but we've got them mentally. So it'd be interesting, I think, just to see what anyone here's thoughts are on: is it a prison? Are there walls? Are we confined, or do we have more freedom than we possibly realise? I think that would be somewhere to start. If anyone's got any thoughts on that, are we in a prison? Are we feeling confined? Because clearly some people are struggling already. We're sort of two weeks into the lockdown, if that's what it is.
So let me start off with that, because I live in a gated community of a small number of flats, and where the gates are, they are wrought iron gates which look like bars, and the fence is a bar. I'm looking out onto my garden, and where I'm located, it's at the back of the complex, where there are 3 flats and there are 10 at the front. So there's a courtyard, and all I can do at the moment is wander into the courtyard, or I can go into the garden. And if I want to go out of the complex, I'm advised not to do that because of my previous health history. So it has very much felt like an open prison, in the sense that I'm allowed to go out for an hour if I want to on the road, which I'm advised not to. So basically, I'm let out for an hour into the exercise yard to get my exercise, and then I've got to come back into the prison. On top of that, got to do my own cooking, and I've got to do my own cleaning, and don't even have the advantages of a prison in that sense. And there are people, I get the sense, getting quite restless around the complex. We rarely see people coming out into the garden, but certainly there are more people coming out just to sit in the garden. And as is permitted, the chairs are now 2 meters apart, so they can't sit around the table. The chairs are now set out in a row as well. So we've got all these new regulations and procedures to follow, but fundamentally, we're stuck here really for the best part of 24 hours. So for me personally, that analogy really seems to hold. So I'll pass over to John and his experience, and then we'll share with the group and get your experience of what it's like to live under these new regulations, which we've had for 2 weeks, and could possibly get more stringent after today, depending on whether or not people behaved outside the compound. So, John, over to you.
I'd love to agree with you, but first of all, having a dog means she needs to be exercised. Secondly, my pattern means that I will pay attention to such rules and to such extent as I think appropriate. So I went out, I had a 5-mile walk this morning with Rita through various parks around, and to that extent, and as long as I can continue to go out 2 or 3 times a day, in all honesty, I don't feel like I'm that much in a prison. And my apologies, but that's being honest. I miss the contact with people for sure, but it's not a huge difference from what my lifestyle was like anyhow. And in any event, I think that the extent to which we believe or don't believe we're in a prison is purely an internal thing. It's purely a mental thing. There are plenty of people who live in high-rise blocks, you know, or other accommodation which has nothing to do with the virus, where they may well feel like they're living in an open prison for most of their lives. So the ability to go out doesn't necessarily mean that you may or may not feel like you're living in an open prison. But I don't. Soz. So I'll go now.
Go out for a walk.
I don't know, 5 miles is enough.
So, of the people that are on here, who would like to share their experience of the last 2 weeks? Buddy, I can see your hand up.
Yeah. Hello, Buddy.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. And happy birthday, Dave.
No, nearly.
No.
John today.
Done.
Well, thanks anyway.
Yeah.
I'll store it for July.
Exactly, that's fine.
When it's Dave's birthday, you can wish me happy birthday.
Okay, sounds like a good idea.
And you can wish me happy birthday tomorrow. I'll accept that as well.
Excellent. Well, what a way to celebrate a birthday.
In fact, you know, honestly, I've never had so many people wish me happy birthday since my bar mitzvah. It's ridiculous. But thank you all for your kind wishes.
It's all right, no problem. I think it is a prison. Yes, it is very much like a prison. And there are certain rules. I'm also abiding by the prison rules, and even in a strict way. Today, I went out for a walk in a park, which is only literally 2-3 minutes away from here. Across the road, up a hill, beautiful. You can see the town at the bottom. And I thought, wow, what a great place to have a conference call. And I thought of taking one of my conference calls up there, do an ANA. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to go and get my laptop. So I went back just 2-3 minutes back. And my laptop wasn't charged, so I was beginning to charge it, and I started looking on my laptop as to the government guidelines, and basically I can't do it because I'm outside the confined area. I have a little garden, I could do it in my little garden, but I can't go into the communal park and do it, which is very, very strict. And I could have easily said, well, why not, you know? I'm safe, I'll be at a 2-meter distance. It's open to interpretations. My mind is telling me, well, look, can be done. But I'm still refrained from doing it because I felt it's more the right thing to do. It's kind of a sense of a responsibility, a communal responsibility to abide by certain rules. And so that means I didn't do it.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, that's my Alexa saying something. That's it, really. I just wanted to say that, yes, it feels like a prison. It's for our own good. It's for the bigger good. And that is why I'm doing it. Pure and simple. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. And who else? Who would like to share their experience of what it feels like, whether it feels like a prison or not? Shaka?
Very sure she is.
Well, whether it feels like prison or not, I think I actually agree with what John said, that it's almost like mental block, because I was thinking today, like I was doing some gardening, and I was thinking, if we could go out and I chose to stay home and do all the gardening, I wouldn't feel any different. But because we cannot go out more than once a day, all of a sudden I'm feeling I'm doing gardening because I've got nothing better to do because I cannot go out. But it's just my mind. And I've been feeling actually guilty about the fact that I can walk in the fields, whereas people who live in town have to walk in park or whatever. Basically, when I go for a walk, I never see anybody. But I'd also quite. I kind of like when I look back at those last 2 weeks, I think that whilst we were all expecting lockdown, I must admit that I have probably experienced shock regardless. I was talking to some of you this week about it on various buddy calls about how tired I was this week. I was like really exhausted, and now I'm kind of there were two things for me. I really don't know whether it feels like prison or not because I never been to prison, but I certainly feel that my freedom is impacted. And one of the things that I kind of reasoned with myself about this is when I think about my home country when Czech Republic was occupied in 1968 by Soviet Union, and the tanks came and basically they locked all the country and people couldn't travel abroad and families got split because somebody emigrated and everything. I'm kind of thinking, well, we are just asked to be home for 3 months or 2 months or whatever, because lockdown is not going to be 3 weeks, as we probably all know. If I think about those countries who were occupied for years and years and years and they didn't know what is going to happen, it kind of like the comparable puts for me the life a little bit in perspective, and therefore I don't feel as bad or as in prison now as I probably would if I didn't just rationalize this in my head, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I feel. It's weird feeling, but I'm actually thinking it could be worse. So it's okay. It's probably for 2 or 3 months. It's not for 30 years, as was case of my home country. So I think I'm slowly adjusting. I don't know what I will be saying in 3-4 weeks time. Maybe I'll be going loopy, but at the moment I think that after initial shock, I'm just starting to adjust. And also I made a kind of like decision in my head for people that I can't see, my loved ones, my people that I would normally see and I can't. I just decided that I would adopt a mentality of a soldier in a mission who has gone to Iraq and is not going to see their loved ones for 3-4 months anyway. So I think I have just really probably adjusted to it at this moment.
Yep.
That's
Thank
all.
you, Shaka. And one more.
I just quickly, I just pick up on something that you said, Shaka, which I think is really important. That whole point about it's almost as soon as you're told that you can't do something, you want to do it. So while you're happy to do your gardening, if that's what you want to do, don't think twice about it. The fact that you're told you can't go and do something else, suddenly, oh, well then I'm almost being forced to do some gardening. It's all just a perception. It's all just the way you take it. And anyone that knows with kids in particular, tell a child not to do something, and that's all they want to do.
Yes.
So again, when I said about an open prison, it's you don't need to see the bars, but to imagine that they're there. You don't need to see the walls to imagine that they're there. And it's almost as if you're told you can't do something, suddenly that's what you want to do. That's my right to go and do it.
Yes.
But actually, it's make the most of enjoy your gardening, and it's not doesn't have to be because you can't do anything else. It can just as easily be because you enjoy doing it, and then you get the most from it. You benefit from doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And before I bring one more person in, I just see that Leona's joined us. Leona is new to the group, and Karen, I think, invited her. So,
Yeah.
Leona, welcome to the group. I don't know if you have a camera. If you do, perhaps we can see you and you can join us, and we'll enable you to speak in a moment anyway. But one more person, whether it's an experience that you had of it being a prison, an open prison, or nothing like that at all. What's your experience been? And then we'll open up for a bit more discussion around this whole concept.
Susie said, and Julia's also.
Okay.
Susie first.
Hi everyone, and happy birthday, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it's an open prison. I think it's one of a great opportunity in life. I feel quite peaceful in acceptance of what is. Let's all look after A, ourselves first, and then B, our family, if we're living with family. But I think there's been far more communication between humans, you know. Early morning walks, I very rarely see anyone, but when I do, they're on the opposite side of the road, or I am. But everybody's acknowledging each other as opposed to walking along a street and not giving eye contact. That's what I've noticed, is that people are actually giving eye contact, being more courteous. And I just think this is a great opportunity to just to value your fellow human being, really. I don't feel I'm in a prison at all. Yes, I've got my own financial worries, as a lot of other people will have, but it is what it is. And if I can just take each day at a time, I'm quite happy where I am, really.
Thank you. And who's next? Was it
Julia? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, really. I don't feel trapped at all. I know we're really lucky to live in the countryside, so we don't have people on top of us, which probably helps quite a lot. But I've just loved this slowing down and being, you know, the four of us spent all morning out in the garden digging and cutting the grass, and the kids had their bikes out. My youngest daughter's taught herself to ride her bike. It's, you know, all these things that I just wouldn't have happened in our normal life, because life was too busy and it's just a one long rush from here to there. And we're baking and we're sitting and playing Monopoly, much as I hate that game, but the kids are obsessed with it. And just doing all these really fun things, and even with the sort of, you know, black economic cloud that's hanging over our heads at the moment as two self-employed individuals, we're just not stressed about it, and it's not. We just are enjoying the time, and I've caught up with so many friends and family members that I haven't had proper conversations with for a long, long time. And we've sat and had good 45-minute, hour-long conversations. And I just wouldn't normally do that, because I'd always think I've got something else to do. So just really enjoying it and enjoying the opportunity that it has presented.
Thank you, Julia. Who else is there? Karen, I can see your name in the list. Are you in the room?
Yes, Karen's there, yeah.
Karen, would you, whereabouts? Sorry, I can't see. I'm lost amongst the people.
Karen, you're lost amongst the people.
There's so many faces on here.
Karen speaks, her frame will light up.
Oh, okay.
Say something.
Right. Yep, okay, I've seen you, Karen. So what's your experience been, and um, how have you found it? And also kind of, I'm asking everybody to think, are there people you know also having this experience, or is it just people within this community? Because most of us here have been doing some sort of work around our emotions for the last few months or a year or more. And are we having a different experience because of the work we've done, or is this just the general experience that everybody outside is having? When you speak to other people, are they finding it similar to you, where life is slowing down, they're enjoying more time with their loved ones, and they don't feel cooped up? Or is it that they have a different outlook on this? So Karen, over to you.
I'm really enjoying it. I'm finding more time to do things in my house, enjoy the kids more, enjoy my husband more, having a bit of a routine. So in the morning we do educational things. Even though Richard still needs to work, I'm just having that me time with the girls. It's very, very special. Then, I mean, the days really goes fast when you're a full-time mom as well. And then on lunchtime is preparing meals. Then, in the afternoon it's like, okay, let's do a bit of film time. And it's quite nice just for a couple of hours, just the two of them. And then it comes in just before dinner, we go out for a walk. And at the moment we are finalizing for one of my youngest to learn ride the bike. So Richard has really tried to switch off at 4:30, whereas he always get home at 6:30. He's really manic at work, so much so that he has to step up as a director in the company. So I sort of feel like our business has slowed down a bit, and we are doing, but slowly, and it's just not a fast pace. I feel like I just want to help and help and help. And what else? It is quite bizarre how when you go out, it's very quiet and it's very unusual. And we live in a little town countryside. I think I've spent more time to contact people and ask them how they are. I have found that some friends, they really finding it hard to be indoors. I have quite enjoyed it. And I think I don't feel like I'm in prison because we can still go out. So yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it's only been 2 weeks, so maybe it changed later on. But I'm having to sort of do a to-do list in my house and just do it as I go and slowly. And if it gets done, it gets done. If it doesn't, I'm finding as well that today we got a message from one of the tenants that potentially in a month's time she won't be able to afford paying the rent. And when we had the first one, that my emotions kicked in because I was trying to find security. Now I'm just finding acceptance. It is what it is. I can't change it. When I was in the garden, actually, I felt like a sort of realization that life is just giving us chances to give to others in any way that we can. And if I'm in a good place, then why shouldn't I? So therefore, don't feed the ego, sort of feed your intuition, your spirit, and then just let it be. Just live by the day, live by the present, and try not to overthink things. When the problem comes, just find the solution and then and there. So yeah, I'm trying not to let my mind take over my body and my spirit. I just bit by bit.
Thank you. And does anybody else who is new here, who hasn't been to one of these before, like to share? I know there's potentially 2 or 3 people in the room like that. You might not be on camera, but you can still speak because we can unmute you. So let me, Dave, do you want to just unmute some of those people, see if they want to speak?
I'll unmute, if I could even say the word, Leona, so I've got it on the screen.
Hello.
Hi, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, my video for some reason isn't coming on, so apologies.
Okay.
But I've been quite poorly for the last 3 weeks with what they think is the virus or was the virus. So I've been struggling a bit with young children and just who've been off school for the last 2 weeks, and just really trying to find a bit of a balance. I love being with my kids, and any extra time that we get as a family obviously is amazing. But I must admit I've been very anxious, and I've definitely felt quite trapped in the last 3 weeks. I think I'm quite a social person who likes to get out, and I love routine. So I've also struggled with not having a routine because I've been poorly. So I'm a bit mixed with this. I'm sort of half and half. Part of me loves the fact that I get to be at home with my children, and the other half of me would like to go back to not being so anxious about any of my family members getting the virus, and also just being able to enjoy being out and not feeling like you shouldn't be out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And also, I think you're the first person we've actually had within this room, rather than just on Facebook, who perhaps has had the actual virus. And you know, hope you continue to recover. And if we can help you as a community in any way, please do reach out to us. Hopefully, you'll benefit just by being in this company.
Yes, thank you for having me.
They've had the fortune or the misfortune to learn a few things, which I'm not sure how help them or not help them. So hopefully that will benefit you. But thank you for sharing that. Is there anything particular that you would like to deal with, something that you're struggling with as a result of getting the virus? You mentioned concern about other members of the family possibly getting it. Is there anything else that is bothering you?
I think it's just been trying to, I work as well, so my husband's now gone back to work. He's works in construction, so he's got to be on the site. He manages it, so while construction is open, he's got to go. So I think I've just been trying to sort of recover, but also deal with the mum guilt of not being able to do the usual things I would with the children when I'm home. But I'm feeling a lot better today. Today's the first day in 25 days that I've actually felt like I can move around and be able to just enjoy little things. So I've definitely made the most of it with the children today. But it's just the balance of trying to work from home and be with the kids. And just the anxieties that you face, you know, knowing that daddy's now outside, and hopefully he's not going to get poorly. It's just those sort of concerns really that bother me at the moment.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, we can now, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. Muted. Thank you for sharing that. Dave, any comments on that? And then John as well.
I think the first thing that strikes me is generally everyone seems to be at ease with what's going on, and maybe not seeing things as a prison. And certainly my take on it is, again, picking up on what Shaka said about doing the gardening because you want to, as opposed to doing the gardening because you don't see you've got any choice because you can't go and do something else that you might have done. Another comment around the slowing down and realising we've maybe whether we like it or not, we're being given more time to do things that we possibly wouldn't have given a priority to prior to all this. But for me, it's I think the most obvious thing is this whole idea of a prison, open prison or not. It's basically comes down to your mind and how you experience it. If you think it's a prison, then it's a prison, and if you think it's not a prison, then it's not a prison. And I'd say that's regardless of whether you can see bars or walls, because there's certainly been instances or times in the past where, I mean, solitary confinement is a punishment in prison, where you are just left on your own, and it is only you and your thoughts and your imagination to deal with things, and that's been seen as a punishment. So for me, yeah, even if you're in that situation, if you don't see that as a punishment, if you don't see it as confinement, then it isn't, because it's all really boils down to what's going on for you and how you choose to experience it. And I think as long as we all choose to experience the positives, if we do start noticing the times that we can spend with our families that we probably wouldn't have done because there would have always been something more, and I use it metaphorical inverted commas, something more important to do, we've possibly been overlooking some of the things that actually are arguably more important. Children growing up, because once they've grown up, they're grown up, so they're no longer children. So you can miss all of that by concentrating on the things that you think are more important. So I think it all really just boils down to attitude and the decision to take things, see things for the good in them and the positive side of things. Understand that that's all really comes from within. And if we as a group, I know we've spoken about this on previous calls, if we as a group take that sort of attitude, if we take that from it, then that just ripples out and benefits other people around us. Whether we're deliberately trying to do that or not, that's not the point. It's not an active thing to do, but that's what will happen. So it's just been actually really positive to hear people just recounting that they're not seeing this as a prison. They're not seeing this we're taking the opportunity to maybe find the things that are more important to us or have more importance.
Thank you. John?
I think that it's interesting that 2 weeks in, maybe a little bit more than 2 weeks in, and where we are still able to go outside, it's impossible for the police to police how many times people are going outside. But hopefully, and my experience is that people are being responsible in terms of keeping the distance. So it'd be interesting to have the call in another 4 weeks' time, when perhaps we're not allowed to go out at all, or in a far more limited way, and see whether people's attitudes have changed, because we aren't in prison. It's as simple as that. And if just to repeat what everybody said, if people are feeling that way, then that is how they are choosing to respond. If people are feeling at all imprisoned, then it is as a result of not being able to do everything that we would normally be free to do, whether we would do it or not. We do have the freedom normally to go and see our friends, see our family, go to the pub, go to a restaurant, whatever. Those freedoms or those choices have certainly been taken away from us. One of the things that we talk about a lot, one of the first learnings is about the wants, and one of those, the three wants, is the want for control. And what we teach is that we don't have control, that actually life is going to do whatever the hell it wants, no matter what we think. And I think that therefore, insofar as people are feeling at all imprisoned, it's because of that perceived loss of control, the loss of freedom to do what we want, the loss of control to decide what we're going to do and how and where we're going to do it. But yeah, as with what we were talking about previously in terms of fear and wanting safety and security, and that having been taken away, the next thing that's being taken away is the perception that we have control. This is a lesson in the fact that actually we don't have control. The only thing that we do control is how we respond, and how you respond will determine whether or not you feel that you are imprisoned or not. If you were poorly, to bring up a topical subject, but if you were in hospital for a month and not able to go out, maybe you're in isolation. But certainly if you're in hospital, you probably wouldn't feel imprisoned. It would just be where you were because of those circumstances. So it's these external freedoms that we take for granted and which give us the illusion of having control, which have been taken away. And if there are, as I say, if there are issues coming up, my guess is that it's around that. But as I say, it'd be interesting to have the conversation again in a few weeks' time, and see how everybody's feeling then. But that's my take on it at the moment.
Thank you, John. And I think this idea premise that you shared just at the end is important, that we have a set of freedoms that we take for granted, and because temporarily we don't have those freedoms, or we don't have them in as great a quantity as we used to have them, perhaps we're feeling that that control has been taken away from it. But again, asking ourselves, what really are we in control of? We're certainly not in control of what COVID does. Yeah, okay, we can mitigate it. We can keep our social distancing. We can minimize the chances of catching it in some ways, but then you can't say that of the health workers that are on the front line. That you can argue, well, they choose to put themselves in the front line, but at the same time, there's an inherent risk involved with exercising that choice, and there's a risk with exercising any choice that we have in a free society. And it's only at times like this that we start to discover what some of those risks are, and sometimes there's a trade-off between, say, control and freedom. Or rather control and security, rather, to what extent are we willing to do a trade? So certainly in my lifetime, in any time that I can remember, this is the first time something's happened which I can say is truly global and everybody is impacted in some shape or form. So we have events, for example, like the London bombings of a few years ago, or 9/11 in America, or other incidences around the world, maybe the tsunami, where hundreds of thousands of people were, I can't remember how many people lost their lives, but it was a lot. But the whole world wasn't impacted by it, whereas this seems to impact the whole world. That there's very few countries around the world which actually don't have any incidents of coronavirus, or can say that that they have no kind of limited incidences on there. So at some level, just about any human who is in contact with the rest of the world will have heard about this and will have some opinion around it, whether they're afraid of getting it themselves or for other people, or for people that either are close to them or not so close to them across the world. So there are implications, and if I can bring Helen in. Helen, good evening or good morning. I can't even remember what time you're on. What time are you on where you are?
It's 11:45. It's not too bad yet.
Not as bad as last time.
No.
So you've had, because last time you were speaking that you had a fair bit of freedom in what you could do, because you'd had an initial lockdown, but it wasn't severe as far as I know, but certainly some freedoms have come back, and now it seems like they've been taken away again. So what is the feeling around where you are, or what you're feeling?
So we've from Tuesday, we're not allowed into, like, restaurants will close for the first time, and we're not allowed out other than to do exercise. So quite similar to the UK, I guess. Up until now, life has just carried on sort of in a muted, slightly spaced out version of normal. My friend actually told me in advance the announcement was going to be made, and so I went to the supermarket, panic buying, and I was like, I'm going to stay totally calm, and all these people were going crazy around me, and I was really like, wow, if I was an anxious person, I would really be freaking out right now. And then I came home and realized our condo pool, my lifeline with the kids, is going to be shut, and I really went to a bit of, oh my God, I might have been choosing to stay at home, but this is going to be hell. This is going to be awful. This is going to be, And then I just thought, okay, you've chosen to stay at home for the last 10 days. It's no different. Like, sort your head out. So I just chose a different thought, I guess. And each time I felt like that, I just thought, we're doing it for our family and we're fine. But it was interesting to know that I've sort of thought that I was totally okay because I've been doing it out of choice. And then as soon as it was something I was told to do, I was like, oh, I felt all trapped.
And it's interesting, this whole concept of control, because I was speaking to a friend in Spain last week, and we were talking about the fact that the UK had gone into lockdown, and he lives in Spain, but he also works in the UK a lot, and he was about to fly out when the lockdown in Spain occurred, and so in the end that they couldn't fly back to the UK, and they also chose that actually probably wasn't wise for them to come to the UK just in case they were carriers, because they didn't want to pass it on to other people. And the whole conversation turned into, yes, what had happened was all good and it was all fine, but it was the fact that they were told they couldn't do something that really kind of raised his hackles. He was fine with following the advice, but the moment they were told that they couldn't do it, that's what brought up the issue around not feeling in control, whereas before they were completely okay with it because nobody had said you can't do it. It was just something that was advice that they do. And speaking to quite a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, there have been a number of people that have raised this idea that they don't have control. And what's interesting about the group here and what I've heard today, and I don't know how you all feel, but here we have a group of people that, generally speaking, have been okay with what's happening because they have an idea of what they are in control of, and they also are clear of what they're not in control of. And they're focusing on the things that they can control. And the things that they can't control, they watch and they participate and they allow it to happen, but they're not getting caught up in, I'm not in control of it, because they know they're not in control of it, and that's okay. Because even if they're not okay, they're still not in control of it. So there's no point in resisting that. So the thing that's encouraged me, because I started playing with the analogy of the open prison, and as I shared it with a number of people, in all the people that I've spoken to, I was surprised as to how many people were relating to that. And yet it seems here that most people are actually saying, well, no, I'm not in a prison. There are so many benefits to it that actually perhaps it's better to be in this prison at this stage, because I'm getting to do things with my family that I never get time to do. And I'm noticing things which I never notice. People go out for a walk and they actually hear the bird song now. Because there's so little background noise. A lot of people have mentioned the fact that the air feels cleaner because there's less pollution in the air. as well. So there's all sorts of kind of advantages which perhaps people wouldn't have recognized initially. And this whole thing about the environment, well, perhaps this is also cleaning up the environment. So quite often things happen in our lives which weren't really in the plan. And, you know, was coronavirus and lockdown actually in any of our plans? And yet, when we really look at what's happening, we start to realize, although we're off plan, there are a lot of advantages to that. There are a lot of benefits that come from that. And rather than fight the fact that we're off plan and we can't really do much about it, why not just accept that we're off plan, that things aren't going in the way we expected them to go, that we would have liked them to go, but we're still living, we're still breathing, and we can make the most out of this situation and find the most out of it as well. So I'm encouraged to hear the people that have shared the positives out of all of this. And also scientifically, pretty much most medics that you speak to will say that the better you feel emotionally, the stronger your immune system is likely to be. So we also protect ourselves from actually getting something that could be harmful to us just by feeling good. And, you know, I've heard people say, well, what's there to feel good about coronavirus? Well, even if there isn't anything specifically about coronavirus, the fact that you feel good means that you're less likely to get it because your immune system is likely to be stronger. So it's finding the good in the situation. And, you know, this is, again, what I'm hearing from the people that they've spoken, that they're doing that on there. So any other kind of input at all, any either opinions or observances? Dave Morris, I'll just come over to you. Yeah. Go on.
Which one of us is unmuting Dave? I don't mind. I think we both are.
Sorry, Dave. I'm not guilty.
So, a couple of observations.
Before you, Dave, before you share, are you getting to play on your golf course?
No.
No.
No. Well, I'm a member of two.
No, not those golf courses. The one in your back garden that you created.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, and I'm glad I've got one in the garden. A couple of observations. The thing about being told and not liking that, I think that's partly why the government strategy has been the way it has. So it's been step by step, and it's been suggestions and requests rather than law, because it will create much more objection to it if it's done that strongly. Second one was, I really didn't like the name of this meeting. And that was really interesting. I had to think carefully about, you know, looking inside, is it because I feel I'm in a prison, or is it because I really don't feel I'm in a prison? And I'm worried that if I come on a meeting which is about being in a prison, I'll suddenly feel I'm in one. So that was quite an interesting thing, because I don't feel I'm in one. We had a call maybe 10 or so days ago, and one of the things I think you suggested, Sanjay, was just to be more in the present moment and observing. And that, for me, that's really been about being in the garden, not practicing golf in the garden, just enjoying the garden. And I've, on a day-by-day basis, I'm seeing every single plant grow. I'm seeing all the trees start to come into blossom and all the new leaves come out. And I've never, ever seen that before. Never seen that. And I am kind of in isolation. I mean, I can go 4 or 5 days without seeing anybody. If my daughter's with her mom, as she has been since Wednesday night, and I won't see her till Tuesday. So it is, there is nobody else here. So we just me and Lisa are making the most of technology. So we had a 3.5 hour virtual date last night, and we took the trouble to get dressed up for it. And it was like having a date, but without any of the fun at the end. And so for me, it's okay if you talk to the older people in my street. They're not bothered by this at all, because they lived through far, far worse than this. And so for them, it's an inconvenience, but it's not that anybody's dropping bombs on them and trying to kill them. So at the moment, I feel good. I enjoy every day. I think I'm with John. It's going to be interesting to see how I am in another couple of weeks, because there's no more cleaning to be done. There's no more gardening to be done. All the stuff that
Will the plants stop growing, Dave?
Pardon?
Will the plants stop growing? Will the birds stop singing?
Now, all of that will still be beautiful, but I've got no grass to mow, you see. So it's going to be a case of, can I slow down even more and just enjoy it, rather, because at the moment I've had to make it look beautiful, and it does now. So I think it will be interesting in another couple of weeks, because I suppose I do miss meeting up with Lisa, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. She was on lockdown before this started because of suspected case in her house, and it really is peak of golf season starting, and I would normally be on the golf course 4 or 5 days a week. So I'm with John. I'm going to be interested to see what the reaction is that I've got in another 2 weeks' time. As it is at the moment, I feel very positive about it. I don't feel I'm being forced to stay at home. I'm just staying safe as far as I can see.
Sorry, Sanjay, if I could just come in. The thing that a number of people have said, and it's been a recurring theme, is being forced to slow down means that, and having certain freedoms taken away from us means that we are more conscious and more aware of that which is around us all of the time. We suddenly hear the birds, which are there every single day. We see the plants growing, and it's springtime, and days like today in particular, it's beautiful. Or maybe people start to appreciate sitting round the table at home and just enjoying the meal with the people that they're living with. And this is, I honestly believe that there could be some real blessings that come out of this. And even if it's only within this group, then that's fine, that's fair enough. But if you actually start to really pay attention to what's around you all of the time, because these things were here, they've always been here, they always will be there. They will always be available to us. And when we start talking about, the power of now and living in the moment, actually really, really paying attention to everything that you have. Forget it, there's no point in wanting at the moment, because there's nothing available to want. But if you focus on what you have and really, really focus on everything that's in front of you, then it really doesn't matter what the hell else is going on. Life is beautiful. It always was. It is at this moment, and it always will be, if your focus is in the right place. And that's the key. So, a lot of you've been doing it. Do it more. And when the virus goes, for goodness sake, don't stop. And your life can be rich from that place. So, sorry, Sanjay, I went off on them.
I was just thinking towards the end, just then, that we'll title the next event something along the lines of "Life is Wonderful, True or False." Would that be better for you, David? I'm really encouraged, kind of hearing everybody, because again, I kind of playing the devil's advocate in a way. The question is, are we happier because of the type of work we've been doing, or is it that the type of work, or rather, we're doing the work that we've been doing because we are generally happier in the first place? And I don't know the answer to that, and I guess it doesn't really matter. What matters is we are happier, certainly than a lot of people that I meet along the way. We seem to be less troubled by the things that are out of our control, and sometimes impacting us. Yes, some people more than others, but on the whole, we're making the most of what we're presented with, whether in this situation or in life in general. Anybody have any views on that? We've got literally a couple of minutes, and then
Sharper.
Yep, Shaka, go on.
Yeah.
Hi, I've got actually a few things that I want to kind of like share my observations. Firstly, I really resonate with Dave Morris, what he said about the plants and everything. I've been noticing it every single day when I go to the garden. I'm like looking, oh, these buds are growing now. Oh, these are a little bit bigger today. It's just amazing, you know. And I always was into my gardening here and there and everywhere, but you know, I never really noticed things developing and growing. I always plant something, and then few weeks later, oh, flowers are here. You know, didn't even see how it happened. Also about the freedom and everything, I also agree that if we were told strictly to stay in, we've been recommended to do it, and it's been done very slowly and gently. And I was actually explaining this to my dad, why it was, because this country is just so used to its own freedom. And so I agree with Dave on it, and with John about that we just need to remember how we feel now and how we are noticing, and I'm definitely determined to continue noticing after the lockdown. I personally, to your question, Sanjay, about the fact whether we feel better or not because the type of work we do, if I can speak for myself, I do feel blessed by the fact that I embarked on EM last year. I feel really lucky and really protected by it all. I actually had today buddy call with my friend Jane, who introduced me to EM, and she said, "Oh, aren't you now glad that you've done EM?" So I bloody am, and because I just feel, and I've done other stuff around previously, but nothing is so profound to cope with this situation as emotional mastery. And even though that I've got my dips and very low moods sometimes, I feel I'm coping over really well with this situation. So yeah, so this is pretty much my thank you for the work that you've been doing with us. For me personally, doing EM has good benefit in this situation. So that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all very much. It's just gone 5 o'clock, and Dave, do you want to just say any final words before we finish?
No.
You took a long time to say that.
It was just seeing if anything was going to come up, but no. I'll just reiterate and repeat, really, the positiveness, if that's the right word, of just the willingness of everyone to explore what they're getting from this. That's great. Actually, that's great. And again, yeah, my true hope is that this doesn't become a lesson that's quickly forgotten in terms of those benefits.
Okay, so thank you, Dave, thank you, John, thank you everybody else for turning up and actually making this possible and contributing to it as well. Thank you, Helen, because I think out of everybody, you're on the latest kind of time, and appreciate you coming over. And that's all for today, this late afternoon. If you can, go sit in the garden and enjoy the sun. If you can't, look out the window and enjoy the sun. So that's it. We'll catch up soon. Any questions or comments that occur afterwards, but please, post them on the forum, and let's all keep on supporting each other and growing together from this. And we'll see where we are next week. Okay, that's it. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.